The Belgian Grand Prix was supposed to be an easy weekend for picking our F1 fantasy teams, but two big penalties could shake everything up. It's time to break down what to do with Lando Norris and Isack Hadjar, plus whether Final Fix and Autopilot are actually worth using at Spa. Let's get to work. Let's dive right into the big news to start the week. The biggest story heading into Spa is that engine penalties could shake up the running order on Sunday. Lando Norris will be bringing in a new power electronics, and since he's at his allocation for the year, he's taking a 10-place grid penalty. This isn't expected to make Norris any faster, but after reliability issues in China, Japan, and Monaco, it should make the car more dependable over the rest of the weekend. Here's what that means for F1 fantasy. Lando's average starting position the last 5 races is 5.4, so we wouldn't want to start the week with him as our 2x boosted driver, but there's a lot of buzz around the final fix. You'd start the week with Antonelli or Hamilton, bank their points for qualifying on the front row, and bring in Norris on Sunday morning. I've run the numbers though, and I'm not buying it. Let's give him the absolute best case scenario. He qualifies P5, starts P15, fights all the way back to P5, and every position gained comes through overtakes and none are through pit stop strategy. If all of that happens, he'd score 30 fantasy points on Sunday. But if Kimi Antonelli wins the race and takes home fastest lap, like he's done in 6 out of the first 9 races, that's 35 points. So Norris needs a perfect recovery drive plus driver of the day just to beat a typical Sunday for Kimi. Plus, betting lines currently predict Norris will finish P7 on Sunday, so his upside could be even lower than what you see here. I don't see Norris as a viable 2x boost candidate this week and plan to hold on to my final fix chip. Now, while Norris's penalty doesn't change my lineup, another penalty may have created the best value of the weekend. A few garages down, Isack Hadjar is reportedly taking an engine penalty as well, and he'll start at the back of the grid. Now, Lance Stroll's also taking a penalty, so depending on how the penalty math shakes out, Isack could start P21 or P22 on Sunday. Hadjar was already one of the best Tier B plays this week after 5 straight top 6 finishes, but now this penalty could unlock a huge fantasy score. Betting lines predict a P8 finish from Hadjar, and if that's based on a P22 start, we're looking at one of the biggest scoring opportunities we've seen from a midfield driver this year. So I'd do whatever it takes to get Isack into your lineups this weekend, even if that means taking a price floor driver to afford him. I wouldn't put the 2x boost on Isack to start the weekend, but it wouldn't be crazy to try the Autopilot chip if you think he ultimately outscores Antonelli. We've talked about the Final Fix and Autopilot chips, but if you want my thoughts on no negative, which is always in play at Spa, make sure you check out our Spa preview video from earlier in the week. And while we're talking about the channel, if you're enjoying these updates, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps us out. Speaking of Red Bull, they were flying in FP1. Verstappen topped the session with Hadjar not too far behind in P4. I worried about the engine mode for Mercedes because we expected them to be really quick around this circuit, and they were nowhere near the Red Bull for the entire hour. Further down on the grid, Oscar Piastri suffered a late hydraulic pressure issue, so we have one McLaren getting more reliable in Lando Norris and the other having an early issue. Let's move on to FP2, where Kimi Antonelli was right where we'd expect, at the top of the timesheets. His teammate George Russell, though, was nowhere near him. Russell finished 1.2 seconds back on his qualifying sims and complained repeatedly about a lack of grip on the team radio. He's going to need to find answers overnight if he's going to fight for a podium this weekend, and I'm initially a little bit concerned about Mercedes as a constructor if he doesn't solve this issue. The other surprise in FP2 was Charles Leclerc, and he finished nearly 8 tenths behind Lewis Hamilton. So we have 2 teams with one driver at the top and another one struggling. And to me, that's going to open the door for Red Bull on our lineups this week. Red Bull looks strong again in this session, so they're making that case on Friday to jump into the meta lineup. This should give us confidence that Hadjar will be able to carve through the midfield on Sunday and finish in the points, so it's another statement on Isack's fantasy upside for this weekend. One final note from FP2, and that's Alpine. Franco Colapinto is likely to be a popular budget play because of his low price gain target, and he was the quicker Alpine on Friday. Pierre Gasly ended his Friday early after a heavy crash that brought out the red flag, but Alpine expect him to be back on track tomorrow. Let's move on to a question from our listeners. This one comes from Weeby. Thoughts on Hadjar and Hulkenberg versus Bortoleto and Colapinto? I like the Hadjar Hulkenberg side before Isack's penalty, and I really like it now. Audi have brought a Spa specification rear wing, so I expect Hulkenberg and Bortoleto to both compete around the top 10. Colapinto and Bortoleto are two of the most likely drivers to gain 0.6 million, but I'd sacrifice one of those max price increases to take advantage of Hadjar's overtaking beast on Sunday. This is a case where the points outweigh the cost cap upside. Let's check in with our final tier list of the week. Kimi Antonelli and Lewis Hamilton will be the most popular picks this week, but if he can sort out his issues from Friday and you have the extra 2.8 million, George Russell's averaged 40 points over the last two races and has the lowest target for a max price rise at 22 points. He could be that big differential for teams with bigger budgets, so keep an eye on him. Lando Norris finds himself on the fence as a final fix candidate, but I don't think he justifies the chip based on the upside we talked about earlier. For those teams that can't afford Isack Hadjar, you can still take advantage of his grid penalty with the Red Bull constructor, who look great across both FP1 and FP2. They've removed the Macarena wing that reportedly led to Verstappen's recent retirements, and now Max is at the top of the grid and feeling more comfortable in the car. So you have a contender for the front row and a driver we expect to come all the way from the back of the grid, so I really like the Red Bull constructor as a differential play this week. In Tier B, it all comes down to prioritizing Hadjar and running three drivers that fit your budget. Lindblad and Franco Colapinto need a single point to gain 0.6 million, so teams looking to build their budget are going to turn to those two. I prefer Bortoleto over Hulkenberg since there's some cost cap upside to Gabby, but Hulkenberg should be competitive in the upper midfield, so I like him this week as well. Fernando Alonso has his lowest price gain target of the year, but said earlier this week that his goal on Sunday is to get home in time to watch Spain in the World Cup final, so that doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy. He stays in the sell category until Aston Martin bring their upgrades for Hungary next week. Time to bring it all together and share the top lineups for the Belgian Grand Prix. And we have something for everyone with these options. First, sticking with the lineup that's gotten us so many points in cost cap gains this year, Kimi Antonelli is the man to beat, so I have him back in the 2x boost spot. Hadjar starting at the back of the grid and should feast on all of those overtakes on Sunday, plus three of the most consistent drivers in and around the top 10 with Lindblad, Lawson, and Bortoleto. This team costs 119.5 million and is plan A for my team that's now up to 304th in the global league. This next one is for those players who are all in on Red Bull. Same core drivers with Hulkenberg over Bortoleto, but now we have the Red Bull constructor in over Ferrari. Max and Isack looking strong on Friday, and this could be the constructor differential of the week. You can bring Hadjar down to Colapinto for a team that costs 117.3 million, or down to Bortoleto for 113.5 million. So there's a Red Bull team for everyone. Last but not least, I know a few of you are going to try to run a Lando Isack punt with your team 3, so here's how you can do it. Norris, Hadjar, double Racing Bulls, Mercedes, Ferrari costs 116.3 million. And this is the kind of lineup I use the Autopilot chip on to make sure you double the score of whoever scores the most points. For 120.6 million, you can run Red Bull over Ferrari. Or if you want to go with a big differential, Red Bull over Mercedes on this team costs 114.6 million, but I don't quite have the stomach for that. We'll be back to answer all of your questions this Saturday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. in the UK, right here on the FanAmp YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.